Well, Shana Tova, and a very special welcome to those of you who are joining us in the warmth and the dryness of our sanctuary. We are so grateful to see you here safe and sound, and hope that you will find it a morning of inspiration and meaning on this Yom Kippur day of 5783. And a very special welcome to all those who are joining us over our live webcast. I know we have many of our college students and families that could not travel, and still others who are not well enough to be with us. And to each and every one of them, we welcome them with full hearts and grateful for your participation. Well, on such a cold, dreary day, it is time for us to warm ourselves up with a good song. The words are right on our screen. We return.
I'll ask that you please repeat after me.
And indeed, we are so glad that we have all returned together. And so our service will continue in our Machzorim, the High Holy Day prayer book. We will turn to page 304 for the call to worship, and I'd ask everyone to rise, please. Page 306, Shema. Be seated as we continue chanting together via Haftarah.
Et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol meodecha v'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotavot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru Asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti atem me'eretz Mitzrayim, l'hiyot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
In this world waiting to be redeemed, our hearts cry out, cannot our dearest hopes at last come true? Many are our defeats, yet how many our deliverances. After servitude to Pharaoh, we chose service to God. After exile in Babylon, we rebuild God's shrine. Yesterday's wounds, so nearly fatal, begin to heal, and Israel, living still, plants new seeds of redemptions.
Let the time come when all the peoples will be joined in bonds that cannot break.
The nations nations will yet be at peace. The earth will yield good fruit. Mountains and waters will exult. Those who sowed in tears will reap in joy, and all will sing with one accord.
We are on the bottom of page 308, and we rise together for tefillah, please.
Oh
And you may be seated. We continue now on page 312 as we are once again introduced to the most haunting prayer of these high holy days, the Unetaneh Tokef, a reminder of the fragility of life and that the only life that we can give thanks for is the time period that we're actually living in right this moment. And that is why on this Yom Kippur day, we are urged to turn from that which has held us back, from that which has hurt, from that which has brought challenge, and instead turn forward, seizing the moment with gratitude, with acceptance, and with the hope that we can do better as we move forward. The Unetaneh Tokef is centuries old, dating back to the 13th century, but it truly does speak to each and every generation. And so we begin.
Unetaneh Tokef kedushat hayom.
us proclaim the sacred power of this day. It is awesome and full of dread. For on this day your dominion is exalted, your throne established in steadfast love. There in truth you reign, and in truth you are judge and arbiter, counsel and witness. You write and you seal, you record and recount. You remember deeds long forgotten. You open the book of our days, and what is written there proclaims itself, for it bears the signature of every human being.
The great shofar is sounded, the still small voice is heard. The angels, gripped by fear and trembling, declare in awe,
this is the day of judgment, for even the hosts of heaven are judged, as all who dwell on earth stand arrayed before you. As the shepherd seeks out the flock and makes the sheep pass under the staff, so do you muster and number and consider every soul, setting the bounds of every creature's life and decreeing its destiny.
Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Kama yavorun v'chamai b'neion michye u'mi yamut mi v'kitzo u'mi lo v'kitzo.
On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed, how many shall pass on and how many shall come to be, who shall live and who shall die, who shall see ripe age and who shall not.
Rosh Hashanah yichatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Rosh Hashanah yichatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Mi va'esh u'mi va'mayim, mi va'chef u'mi va'chaya, mi va'ra'av u'mi va'tzama, mi va'rosh u'mi va'magefa, mi va'chanika u'mi va'zekila.
Who shall perish by fire and who by water, who by sword and who by beast, who by hunger and who by thirst, who by earthquake and who by plague, who by strangling and who by stoning.
Rosh Hashanah yichatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Rosh Hashanah yichatevun, v'yom Kippur yichatevun. Mi yanuch u'mi yanuach, mi yashkit u'mi toraf, mi shalev u'mi yasser, mi yani u'mi yashir, mi yushpal u'mi yarum.
Who shall be secure and who shall be driven, Who shall be tranquil and who shall be troubled? Who shall be poor and who shall be rich? Who shall be humbled and who shall be exalted?
Rosh Hashanah ikatemun, v'yom Kippur yichatemun. Rosh Hashanah ikatemun, v'yom Kippur yichatemun. U'teshuvah, u'tefillah,
But repentance, prayer, and charity temper judgment's severe decree. This is your glory. You are slow to anger and ready to forgive. It is not the death of sinners you seek, but that we should turn from our ways and live. Until the last day, you wait for them, welcoming them as soon as they turn to you.
You have created us and know what we are. We are but flesh and blood.
Our origin is dust, and dust is our end. Each of us is a shattered urn, grass that must wither, a flower that will fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by, a particle of dust floating on the wind, a dream soon forgotten.
But you are the sovereign, the everlasting God.
We rise together for the Kedusha.
Oh ושמך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד.
To all generations we will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. You may be seated as we turn to page 318.
Eloheinu ve'avoteinu, ya'aleh v'yavo v'yizacher zichroneinu, v'zichron kol amcha beit Yisrael levonecha, letova lechenu lechesed u'irachamim, lechayim u'leshalom, ve'yom ha'kippurim hazeh. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova.
Amen.
Amen. Ufokdeinu bo livracha.
Amen.
Vehoshienu bo lechayim.
And we continue on the bottom of page 319.
And say, Adonai Eloheinu, be'amcha Yisrael.
On the bottom of page 320, we continue responsively. Let us rejoice in the light of the day, in the glory and the warmth of the sun, in the reawakening of life to duty and labor. We rejoice in the light of day. In the earth with its hills and valleys, its widespread fields of grain, its fruit and hidden treasures.
We rejoice in the beauty of earth.
In the love of fathers and mothers who have nurtured our lives, with whose blessing we have gone forth to our own work in the world.
We rejoice in the love of parents.
In the children who bless our homes, whose eager minds and hearts are the promise of tomorrow.
We rejoice in our children.
In friends who share our sorrows and joys, in the fullness of the abundant life and the serenity of old age, and in the peace that comes at last.
We rejoice and shall rejoice forevermore.
Our God and God of our all generations, bless us with your threefold benediction now, as is recited in the Torah. May God bless you and keep you. May God shine always upon you. And may God grant each and every one of us peace. Sim Shalom, page 322. We turn now to page 324. For the opening section of what is known as Vidui, our confession of sin. But in truth, sin is the wrong word. We in English don't have a proper word to talk about al-chet. Chet is an archer's term. It means missing the mark. And indeed, that is what Yom Kippur is all about. It's to bring us back to the bullseye, to remember where our energies and attention should be spent. Once again, we know that we will not take perfect aim, but there is always a chance for better, and there is always a chance to hit the bullseye. And so we begin on page 324. For transitions against God, the Day of Atonement atones, but for transgressions of one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until they have made peace with one another.
I hereby forgive all who have hurt me, all who have wronged me, whether deliberately or inadvertently, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account.
As I forgive and
Pardon those who have wronged me. May those whom I have harmed forgive and pardon me,
whether I acted deliberately or inadvertently, whether by word or by deed. We rise together, please.
Tefillateh
Our God and God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not be deaf to our pleas, for we are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say before you, our God, the God of all ages, we are perfect and have not sinned. Rather do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed. You may be seated as we continue for a few moments of our own silent confession, either reading the words on the pages before us or speaking from our hearts and thoughts. When Cantor Ben Ray takes the time to sing and chant, I believe it gives us all a moment to feel the spirit of this day. And as I follow the most meticulous directions that she has given me, she often shares who was the composer of a particular piece. I was thinking to myself as I listened to the Yehiyu Liratzon, what a magnificent rendition. And then I noticed the composer was she herself. I knew I had never heard it before, but I know I will hear it again. And for that, we will be very grateful. We continue in the middle of page 327.
Ay, 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 ay. Ishinu Horef, ay, 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 Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, ay, 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 ay.
Who among us is righteous enough to say, I have not sinned? We are arrogant and brutal, careless and destructive, egocentric and false, greedy and heartless, insolent and joyless. Our sins are an alphabet of woe. Now may it be your will, O God of all generations, to pardon all our sins, to forgive all our wrongdoings, and to blot out all our transgressions. We sin against you when we sin against ourselves,
For our failures of truth, O God, we ask forgiveness.
for passing judgment without knowledge of the facts,
And for distorting facts to fit our theories.
for deceiving ourselves and others with half-truths,
And for pretending to emotions we do not feel.
for using the sins of others to excuse our own,
And for denying responsibility for our own misfortunes.
for condemning in our children the faults we tolerate in ourselves.
And for condemning in our parents the faults we tolerate in others.
We sin against you when we sin against ourselves,
For our failures of justice, O God, we ask forgiveness.
for keeping the poor in the chains of poverty,
And turning a deaf ear to the cry of the oppressed.
for using violence to maintain our power,
And for using violence to bring about change.
for waging aggressive war,
And for the sin of appeasing aggressors.
for obeying criminal orders,
And for the sin of silence and indifference.
for poisoning the air and polluting land and sea.
And for all the evil means we employ to accomplish good ends.
We sin against you and we sin against ourselves,
For our failures of love, O God, we ask forgiveness.
for confusing love with lust,
And for pursuing fleeting pleasure at the cost of lasting hurt.
for using others as a mean to gratify our desires,
And as stepping stones to further our ambitions.
for withholding love to control those we claim to love,
And shunting aside those whose youth or age disturbs us.
for hiding from others behind an armor of mistrust,
And for the cynicism which leads us to mistrust the reality of unselfish love.
Teach us to forgive ourselves for all these sins, O forgiving God, and help us to overcome them.
Ve'al kulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu mechalanu Kaper lanu Ve'al kulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu mechalanu Selach lanu mechalanu Kaper lanu.
For all these sins, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement.
Achen shechatanu lefanecha birchilut.
The sin we have committed against you by malicious gossip,
Achen shechatanu lefanecha begilui arayot.
the sin we have committed against you by sexual immorality,
Ve'achen shechatanu lefanecha b'ma'acha uv'mishteh.
and the sin we have committed against you by gluttony,
Achen shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin.
the sin we have committed against you by narrow-mindedness,
Achen shechatanu לפניך בכחש ובכזב.
The sin we have committed against you by fraud and falsehood,
והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם.
and the sin we have committed against you by hating without cause.
החטא שחטאנו לפניך בנטיית גרון.
For the sin we have committed against you by our arrogance,
החטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות מצח.
the sin we have committed against you by our insolence,
והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש.
and the sin we have committed against you by our irreverence,
החטא שחטאנו לפניך בווידוי פה.
for the sin we have committed against you by our hypocrisy,
החטא שחטאנו לפניך בפלילות.
the sin we have committed against you by passing judgment on others,
והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשך ובמרבית.
and the sin we have committed against you by exploiting the weak,
החטא שחטאנו לפניך בכפת שוחד.
for the sin we have committed against you by giving and taking bribes,
החטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע.
for the sin we have committed against you by giving way to our hostile impulses,
והחטא שחטאנו לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע.
and the sin we have committed against you by running to do evil. For all these sins, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. We turn to page 335.
As in your love you have been patient with this people from the time you led us out of Egypt to the present day, so in your great love may you forgive your people now. And God said, I have pardoned in response to your plea.
Who can say, I have purified my heart and I am free from sin?
So righteous that they never sin.
Cast away all the evil you have done and get yourselves a new heart and a new spirit.
A new heart will I give you, a new spirit put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart that feels.
For thus says the eternal God, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out.
As a shepherd seeks them out when any of the flock go astray, So will I seek out my sheep.
I will put my spirit within you and teach you to live by my laws.
For I desire love and not sacrifices, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings.
Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil and learn to do good.
Seek justice, correct oppression, defend the orphan, plead for the widow.
Seek your God, the Eternal One, whom you shall find if you search with all your heart and soul.
Show us your love, O God, and grant us your help.
Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel b'rachamim u'b'ratzon et tefilotenu. Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel b'rachamim u'b'ratzon et tefilotenu. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh yameinu, Chadesh yameinu, Chadesh yameinu, yameinu kekedem, Chadesh yameinu, Chadesh yameinu, Chadesh yameinu kekedem.
Hear our voice, eternal God. Have compassion upon us, and with that compassion, accept our prayer. Help us to return to you, God. Then truly shall we return. Renew our days as in the past. Together. Our God, God of all generations, may the sense of your presence never leave us. May it keep us ever faithful to your covenant. Make us responsive to your teachings. Fill our souls with awe and our hearts with love, that we may return to you in truth.
Ki anu amecha v'yatamakeinu, anu alecha v'yatavinu, anu nachalatzecha v'yatagur aleinu, anu tzonecha v'yataroeinu, anu karmecha v'yatanotreinu, anu v'yatzecha v'yatatotreinu.
Each and every time we join together on Yom Kippur, we are gifted with a story that helps us to understand our connection to each other, to our community, and ultimately to Temple Har Shalom. To introduce our speakers of this morning, it's a pleasure to welcome back our president, Greg Paradise.
Each year during our Yom Kippur services, like most other temples around the world, we invite someone to deliver our Kol Nidre appeal. As always, this is a crucial part of our temple fundraising processes. But it is also an opportunity to honor a member of our community and to shine a spotlight on a special personal story. This year, we are certainly accomplishing both of these goals. Our speakers, plural this year, are Janine and Justin Silberberg. While Janine and Justin have only been members of our congregation for just over 2 years, their contributions are already remarkable and noteworthy. They have made a new home here at THS, not only for themselves and their 2 daughters, but they've also filled our ark with a new Torah. I'm pleased to invite Janine and Justin to the bima to share their story.
Good morning. As one of Har Shalom's newest families, we are honored and humbled to speak with you today. This is only our third time sharing high holidays with everyone here. The first time was in a baseball stadium, and that was quite an experience. The second was last year. As a family, Justin, our girls, and I have attended services many times. Our children attend the day school, and I have been to many sisterhood events. But what makes our story unique to deserve your attention this morning?
We joined Har Shalom in the middle of the pandemic, sight unseen. I'm a corporate M&A lawyer, so I know a little something about due diligence, but I'm embarrassed to admit that I did more research buying my last television than I did when it came to joining Har Shalom. But I will say, when we streamed Shabbat services during COVID, the picture was incredible. But jokes aside, how did we come to sit here among you?
Shortly after we moved from Hoboken to Far Hills in 2016, we met John and Kelly Sandler. Our daughters attended preschool together at the JCC in Bridgewater. The Sandlers have become one of our closest friends. Early in our friendship, they encouraged us to explore Har Shalom. While we were seeking a conservative synagogue, it was also important for us to join a community where we had friends and connections that would keep us engaged and provide a foundation for our girls to grow their love of Judaism.
Joining the temple was easy. Complete the application, send in your dues. However, nearly 3 years later, I still struggled to feel connected to the shul. Last year, I listened as Stacy Coleman gave this address. I was moved by her passion for Har Shalom, and I wanted to share her exuberance, but I still thought of myself as a guest in someone else's house. Spiritually, I remain connected with Congregation Beth Mordecai in Perth Amboy. Before I tell you about Beth Mordecai, let me tell you a little something about Perth Amboy. Perth Amboy was once home to one of the largest and oldest Jewish communities in New Jersey. The city's population has now dwindled to all but a handful of elderly Jews. Gone are the kosher butcher shops and Jewish-owned stores that line the downtown. The YMHA of Perth Amboy, once the center of community activity, closed its doors in 2003 after 103 years. There used to be 5 congregations in Perth Amboy. The city's last Orthodox shul closed in 2011 after 108 years, leaving Beth Mordecai as the last remaining shul.
Beth Mordecai was founded in 1895 by immigrants from Germany and Hungary. Services were held in a rented hall, not much unlike the early days of Har Shalom. Justin's mother's family was among its founding members. In the fall of 1897, Beth Mordecai moved to a wooden building on Hobart Street. At that time, Beth Mordecai was an Orthodox synagogue. In 1921, spurred by lobbying from young members, the congregation became conservative. In 1927, Beth Mordecai would move again, finding a permanent home at 224 High Street.
I wish that each of you could experience the beauty that is Beth Mordecai. Situated on one of the most beautiful tree-lined residential streets in Perth Amboy, just a short walk from the city's waterfront, Beth Mordecai maintained a formidable presence on High Street for nearly a century, with its beautifully crafted stained glass windows and a stone carving of the 10 Commandments high above the front doors. The steps in front of the synagogue were a place to congregate after services. Nearly 50 years ago, following high holiday services, a young man approached a young woman on these steps and asked her to attend a party at a fancy country club. The woman, excited to go to the party, accepted the invitation, though she didn't think much of the young man at the time. Little did they know that they would be sitting here among you today. That is the story of how my dad met my mother. I am honored that my parents are here with us today. For me, Beth Mordecai is and will always be a special place. 6 generations of our family daven there. I attended high holiday services at Beth Mordecai for over 40 years. My parents, my siblings, and I always sat in row J with my mother's parents, Sydney and Amelia, for whom our daughters, Sydney and Amaya, are named. That row has been in our family for nearly 70 years. Like many small children, I would constantly ask when it was time to go home, as my children are doing right now. From an early age, I studied the beauty of the stained glass windows in the sanctuary and the ornate woodwork of the ark, and admired the Torahs when the ark was opened. But more than anything, in my boredom, I would read the names on the Yortzeit panels that adorned all four walls of the sanctuary. We have family members on every wall. Though I personally knew few of them, I always felt a sense of comfort and belonging surrounded by those names. Our family's relationship with Beth Mordecai runs deep. For 127 years, we worshiped, learned, and celebrated many simchas, including the baby namings of both of our daughters. My father and his brothers were bar mitzvahed there. My mother was confirmed. I can only imagine how many of my relatives may have touched their taluses and their prayer-books to this Torah as it was paraded through services. Some of my relatives were temple officers and others active in the sisterhood and men's club. Beth Mordecai has also supported us and provided us comfort in difficult times. It is where we observed many Yortzeits, and when my mother was 15, she tragically lost her sister in a terrible accident. There were too many mourners for the funeral home to accommodate her family. In one of the darkest moments for our family, Beth Mordecai was there for my mother and grandparents, hosting my aunt's funeral, a rare event for the shul. Early in our relationship, Janine started attending services with me at Beth Mordecai. On Yom Kippur in 2017, after nearly a decade of coming to high holiday services with me, Janine stayed home, but she had a pretty good excuse. Our daughter Amaya was born a few days before. But something very special happened that day. After nearly 35 years of estrangement, my father reconciled with his brother Neil. For many years, we would see my uncle in shul sitting in the far back corner. That day, midway through services, my father walked over to my uncle and invited him to join us. Though hesitant at first, my uncle joined us a few minutes later. That was the first time my sister, my niece, my two nephews, and my daughter Sydney met my Uncle Neil. A few days later, my parents started seeing my aunt and uncle on a regular basis. Both my aunt and uncle have since passed, but I like to think that Beth Mordecai was the catalyst that reunited them. Around this time last year, we learned that Beth Mordecai would be closing its doors for the final time. Though this possibility had always been discussed for several years, we had always hoped for an alternate ending. Attending the final Friday night Shabbat service with my daughter Sydney and my parents was surreal. Rabbi Allen spoke to us about pressing ahead into an uncertain future. During the Oneg Shabbat in the social hall, there were boxes of pictures on display containing thousands of pictures that we sifted through as we celebrated our last Shabbat in that social hall. Here, among the boxes, were lifetimes of memories, countless faces whose names are lost to the hands of time. And yet somehow I found a picture of my uncle when he was 10 years old. 2 days later, the temple deconsecration service took place. After the deconsecration service, my mother told me that the temple was giving away various pieces of Judaic. And she mentioned that there was a beautiful 4 by 8 foot, yes, 4 by 8 foot stained glass window depicting the 10 Commandments. It's mounted high above, you can't see it in this picture, but there's a balcony, and this picture is taken down from the balcony. High above the balcony, the 10 Commandments are mounted. Immediately, I thought about what wall to hang this gargantuan piece of artwork on in our house. Thought it would look perfect in our dining room. I called Janine, and after a few minutes of husband and wife negotiations, I realized that aside from our annual Seder, it probably wasn't the best idea.
It's really heavy, too.
At that point, I called John Sandler and asked him whether Har Shalom would be interested. Now, this window, hanging 30 feet in the air, probably weighed a few hundred pounds, so retrieving it would have been no small task. Within a short time of my call, the Har Shalom leadership team was drawing up plans to rent a truck to drive to Perth Amboy with ropes, pulleys, and a couple members of the maintenance team to retrieve the 10 Commandments. When I shared the news with Rabbi Allen at Beth Mordecai, I learned that the window was no longer available. Feeling defeated, I asked what else was available, as I didn't want to return to the congregation empty-handed. With not much left of sentimental value, I was ready to say goodbye when I asked Rabbi Allen what was happening with the 5 Torahs. He told me that 4 of the Torahs had found new homes, one as far away as Australia. But the 5th Torah was still looking for a new home. and that was my sign. I asked if he could put the Torah on hold for me, as if it was something you would put on layaway in a store. I immediately called John and shared the disappointing news about the 10 Commandments, but then I offered, how about a Torah? That afternoon, I put my actual job on hold as I spent the afternoon on the phone with John and back and forth with Rabbi Allen, answering questions such as, how big is the Torah? How much does it weigh? What condition is it in? As I waited by the phone, hoping to hear from Rabbi Minitsky, I grew impatient and waited and waited. And that evening, the rabbi called me to share the most wonderful news. She told me that Har Shalom would be honored to accept the Torah. She told me that the ark at Har Shalom had been built to accommodate 5 Torahs, and we only had 4. She also told me that a few weeks before, she was wondering to herself if the congregation would ever get a 5th Torah to complete the ark. And just like that, Beth Mordecai's 5th Torah would soon become Har Shalom's 5th Torah. It was Beshert. Janine and I could not wait to share the news with my parents and siblings. A few weeks later, I went to pick up the Torah. As I drove to Perth Amboy, I wondered, am I underdressed? What does one wear when they pick up a Torah? Should I put a kippah on once the Torah is in the car? We have an SUV. The back is pretty big. Do I lay the Torah down, or does it ride shotgun with me? All important questions that I probably should have asked Rabbi Minitsky before I embarked on my journey. Rabbi Allen helped me carry the Torah to my car, securing it in the front seat. With a kippah on my head and my precious cargo riding shotgun, I drove straight to Har Shalom, religiously obeying all speed limit signs. This was a uniquely personal exodus for me and this Torah. But much like the Jews leaving Egypt for a new home in the land of Israel, I was bringing this Torah to its new home. Though Beth Mordecai's physical presence has sadly come to an end, its legacy will endure. Its Torahs have gone out into the world to 5 new congregations to teach and to inspire future generations. Like our Holocaust Torah, this Torah has found new life. When I arrived at Har Shalom, Janine met me in the parking lot, and we brought the Torah inside. Rabbi Minitsky and Josh Greenbaum were waiting for us. Walking into the shul that Sunday morning with the Torah in my arms, I finally felt like I was home. This was where our Torah was supposed to be, and this is where our family was destined.
Rabbi Minitsky took us into her study along with Josh, and we unwrapped the Torah for a short inspection. It was truly a very special moment. After a few minutes, Rabbi asked if we'd like to bring the Torah into the sanctuary. Little did we know that our daughter Amaya would be in here with Cantor practicing Dayenu, perhaps one of the most fun and uplifting Hebrew songs. What a surprise it was for us and them as we entered the sanctuary to bring this Torah to its new home, with so many of our children singing and dancing. And there's a picture there too. It was an unscripted event. We wish you could have witnessed the energy and excitement. In every temple, the ark is where our individual Jewish compass needles point. We are honored that this ark is now the new home.
It is our sincere hope that this Torah will be used by all of our current and future members. To the children out there, nothing would make us feel more honored to see you read from this Torah at your bar and bat mitzvahs. As you've heard from Rabbi Minitsky, we are embarking on the Lashana Torah, the year of the Torah. Over the next year, we plan to restore Har Shalom's oldest Torah, which belonged to a synagogue lost in the Holocaust, and our newest Torah from Beth Mordecai. A few weeks ago, the Lashana Torah Steering Committee had the honor of meeting Neil Yerman, the sofer, or scribe, who will restore the Torahs. Neil shared with us many insights about these Torahs, including their origins, the types of repairs needed, and how all congregants can participate in this very special project. One of the things that Neil said, which resonated with us, is that in all congregations, the Torahs are the oldest members. What would they say if they could talk? And we need to care for them as we would our elders. There will be opportunities for everyone to participate in this project. We invite you to join us and share in this impactful project throughout the next year, starting with our Meet the Scribe event on Shabbat services on Friday, October 14th.
Each of us has a unique story of how we came to Har Shalom and why this congregation is special. A year ago, our family felt like a stranger in this sanctuary, looking to be pulled in. It couldn't find a connection, but I think we were looking a little too hard. We found a way to connect the past with the future. We look forward to the day our daughters will read from the Torah at their bat mitzvahs on this bima. To each of you, we ask, please get involved with our synagogue. Share your stories. Support us and with your ideas and your time. Find projects and initiatives that excite you. Please bring your passion together as we create great things. We are fortunate to have a dedicated leadership team and executive board, a compassionate and inspirational leader in Rabbi Muknitsky, and a vibrant and energetic Cantor in Cantor Ben Ray. Their commitment to ensuring our congregation is one that thrives is special. They are innovative and engaging, consistently looking for ways to involve all members of our community, from the youngest children to the oldest adults, in spiritual growth. On this holiest of days, we appeal to you to make a financial commitment to Har Shalom. Your donation will provide support to a multitude of workshops, programming, and even this Torah project that fills our congregation with connections to faith and family. You can show your support by taking one of the appeal envelopes or capturing the QR code that will be shared with you today. Just like the Torahs, we will restore together this year. Your financial support ensures our congregation will stay healthy and provide a lifetime of connection for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now that we have been introduced to the newest Torah at Temple Har Shalom, it is time to read from its precious words and to tell its story once again to all of us, as we have been doing L'Dor V'Dor, from generation to generation. Please turn to page 338, and I'd ask you all to rise, please. And we remain standing as we continue with Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu Chachazirenu B'tishuvah Shlema Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, bring us back to you in full repentance.
Avinu Malkeinu Salach U'Machal L'chol Avonotenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, forgive and pardon all our misdeeds.
Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Va'al Olaleinu V'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our children.
Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Dever V'Herev V'Ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, make an end to sickness, war, and famine.
Avinu Malkeinu Kodvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for blessing in the book of life.
Avinu Malkeinu Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, let's grant you a good year for us.
Avinu Malkeinu Aseh Imanu Lama'an Shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, help us to exalt your name in the world.
Avinu Malkeinu Kabel Berachamim Uveratzon Et Tefilatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, in your mercy, accept our prayer. Together, Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer us, for we have little merit. Treat us generously and with kindness, and be our help.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Aleinu, Yiranu Asi. Asei Manu, Tzedakah v'chesed.
Totally off script. I can think of no better way to welcome this newest Torah into our midst by offering the very first Hakafah that we have been participating in the past 3 years. So if Justin, you are still with us, perhaps? Well, his kids wanted to leave early. Come on, Justin, come on up. I'm going to ask you to take this extraordinary gift that has come from Beit Mordechai, as it was left from one home. May we, its new family, touch it, engage it, kiss it, and welcome it, as Justin now carries it through the congregation.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Ve'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'nora Shemo. Lecha Adonai hagedula, v'hagedula, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach v'nachon. Ki chofat shamayim u'baaretz, ki chofat shamayim u'baaretz. Lecha Adonai
seated. As we began the new year on Rosh Hashanah, we began the Torah story all over again with Bereshit. And we then continued on to the story of the Akedah, each stories that remind us of God's creation and, more importantly, God's gifts to us. For Yom Kippur, we now go from the very beginning of the Torah to the very end of the Torah. In the fifth book, the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, it is here that we turn to a portion known as Nitzavim. You, Israelites, are standing with us this day. It is as if each of us were standing there with Moses, as he was giving his final instructions to the Israelite people, realizing that he himself would never make it to the Promised Land, but wanting the journey of the Israelites to the Promised Land to be the best it could be. And so he reiterates once again all of the different laws and rules and regulations that the Israelites need to follow if they are to have a life worth living. And indeed, I think any parent or any person as a child can understand exactly what Moses was doing. It was as if he was standing at the front door waving goodbye and saying, don't forget to call, be kind to your neighbors, be generous, and please, please remember your manners. All of that is the story of Moses now as he talks to not only the Israelites, but more importantly, you and I. You can follow along with the Torah portion on page 342. We are honored to have several Torah readers with us on this Yom Kippur day. For our first Aliyah, it's a pleasure to welcome forward David Scharf. And for the honor of the Aliyot, as they continue to be group Aliyot, and in keeping with the theme of this Yom Kippur day, we offer this Aliyah to all of those who do not take themselves so seriously. Please rise. Anyone who does not take themselves so seriously. Baruch et Adonai HaBorach, Baruch Adonai HaBorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaBorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
One moment, please. I had it rolled yesterday. And this morning.
Yes, you did.
That's cut off from this morning.
You're starting with attendance.
Atonement Tavim. No.
Hefty Torah. Very hefty.
Can you move that, please? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem Rashechem Shiftechem Ziknechem Vishodrechem Kol Ish Yisrael Tapchem Nishechem V'gercha Asher Bekerev Machanecha Mechotev Etzicha Ad Shoev Meimecha Le'avrecha Be'ivrit Adonai Elohecha Uvalato Asher Adonai Elohecha Koreit Imcha Hayom.
Beautiful. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu.
Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
Yasher koach. You may be seated. As our second Torah reader, we invite forward Stacy Coleman. And for our second Aliyot, for all of us who believe in miracles, please rise. For all of us who believe in miracles.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Le'ma'an hakim otecha hayom lo le'am v'hu yehelecha le'Elohim ka'asher deber la v'ka'asher nishpa le'avotecha le'Avraham le'Yitzhak u'le'Yakov v'lo itchem levadchem anochi koreit et habrit hazot ve'et ha'alah hazot ki et asher yishno po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. You may be seated. Our third Torah reader is Andrea Perez, and our third Aliyot goes to all of those who may be anxious to get rid of anything that is not useful, beautiful, or joyful in your homes.
Can you roll this a little bit? It's a very cumbersome tomorrow. This one. I got it. Cool.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach, Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher charbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzavecha hayom lo nifleti mimcha hashamayim hi lemor mi ya'alalanu hashamayma v'yikacheha lanu v'yashminu ota v'nasena v'lo me'ever layam hi lemor mi ya'avelanu el ever chaya v'yikacheha lanu v'yashminu ota v'nasena ki karov alecha hadavar me'od b'fivcha u'b'lvavecha la'asoto.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. You may be seated. Thank you, Andrea. Our fourth Aliyah to the Torah, Rebecca Silberman. And our fourth Aliyah is for anyone this year that will choose to use their good china, their nice tablecloths, and their fancy silver, and not save it for a special occasion. Baruch Adonai Hamborach, Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu Et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Re'ei natati lefanecha hayom et hachayim ve'et hatov ve'et hamavet ve'et hara asher anochi mitzavecha hayom la'ahava et Adonai Elohecha la'lechet bidrecha v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u've'rachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta v'im yifne levavecha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'hishtachavita le'elohim acherim va'avatam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. And you may be seated. Mazel tov, sweetie. And now it is a pleasure for our fifth Aliyah to welcome Rebecca's sister, Jackie Silberman. Rebecca and Jackie are both madrichim and members of our Machon High School, and it is always such a treat when they decide to stand up and be counted and chant Torah as an example to all those that come after them. And for this, the last Aliyah, for all of us who believe that life is not fair, but it is still good. Please rise. Baruch et Adonai Hambarach, Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Higati Nati lachem hayom ki avod tovedun lo ta'arichun yamim al ha'adama asher ata over et hayardain levo shama lerishta ha'idoti vachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aret ha'chayim ve'hamavet natati lefanecha haberacha ve'hakalala uvacharta ve'chayim lema'an tichya ata v'zarecha le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bekolo u'dov kavo et ki hu hayecha ve'orech anecha lishmoa al lashevet al ha'adonai asher nishba Adonai la'avotecha le'Avraham le'Yitzchak u'Yaakov
L'Tehem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I'm going to ask that we please remain standing so that we can dress the Torah and put it in its place as we prepare for the Haftarah reading. And as we do so, we remember always those who are in need and extra prayers of healing. If you are thinking of someone who needs healing of body, mind, or soul, please feel free to share their name out loud or quietly in your own hearts.
Mi shebeirach avotei
And perhaps more often than we realize it, our prayers for healing do indeed work and strengthen those who share the holidays. And now it is my pleasure to welcome forward one such person whom we are so glad to have back on our bima in good health and strength, Natanya Levitz, together with her daughter, Jessica.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim beratzah v'divrechem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah Huv Moshe Abdo Huv Yisrael Amo Huvin B'yei Ha'emet V'Tzedek Kira v'garon al tachsoch Kashofar harem kolecha V'hagei le'ami pisham U'veit Yaakov chatotam Ve'oti yom yom yidroshun Ve'da'at rachai yachpatsun Kegoy asher tzedaka asa Umishpat Elochav lo azav Yishaluni mishpatei tzedek Kirvat Elohim yachpatsun Lama tzamnu velo ra'ita Ininu nafshenu velo teda Hein beyom zomchem timseu chayfetz V'chol atzvechem tin gosu Hein lariv umatzah tatsumu Ul hakot be'egrof resha Lo tatsumu chayom Lehashmiya b'marom kolchem Hahazeh Yeh Zom Efcharechu Yom Anot Adam Nafsho Halahof Ke'agmon Rosho Besak Va'efer Yatzia Halazeh Tikrat Som Beyom Ratzon Ladonai Halozed Zom Efcharehu Pateach Hartubo Resha Hater Agudot Motza Veshalach Retzutzim Hafshim Vechol Mota Tenateku
Halo faros laraev lachmecha Va'ani merudim tavivayit Ki tireh arom v'chisito Umipsarcha lo titalam Hazi baka kashachar orecha Va'aruchatcha meherat titzmach Ve'alach lefanecha tzikecha Kevod Adonai ya'asvecha Az tikrav Adonai ya'aneh Tishava vayomar hineni Im tasir mitochecha mota Shelach etzba v'daber aven V'tafek laraev nafshecha V'nefesh na'ana tasbiya V'zarach b'choshech orecha Va'afilatcha katzohorayim V'nachacha Adonai tamid, v'hispia b'tzachzachot nafshecha, v'atzmotecha yachalit, v'hayita kegan raveh uchmotza mayim, asher lo yechazvu meimav, uvanu mimcha charvot olam, Mosdei dor vador tikomem, v'kora lecha goder peretz, mishovev netivot lashavet, im tashiv mishabat raglecha, asod chavatzecha b'yom kodshi, v'karata lashabat oneg, likdosh Adonai mechubad, v'chibadeto me'asot drachecha, mimsoch heftecha v'daber davar, az titanag al Adonai, v'yirkavticha al b'motei haaretz, v'ha'achalticha nachalat Yaakov avicha, ki pi Adonai diber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, tzaddik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber kayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanviim v'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, limchila v'lislicha u'chapara, lechavod ultifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umbarchim otach, yibarach shimcha, b'fi kol chai tamid leolam va'ed, udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad, baruch atah Adonai, melech mochel v'solech lavonotenu, v'lavonot amo b'Yisrael, uma'avir hashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech al kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim.
We turn now to page 357. I'm going to ask you all to rise, please, as we return the Torah to the Ark.
Ti
So each October, a wonderful event is held in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It is called the Head of the Charles Regatta. University and college rowing crews from all over the United States come to Cambridge to compete on the Charles River. It is an exciting spectacle where hundreds of thousands of people flock to the riverbank from all over the world. One breezy October morning, Rabbi David went out to watch. He saw all the wonderful crews practicing, and then he noticed for the very first time there was a brand new crew team from his alma mater, Yeshiva University in New York City. He was thrilled that the yeshiva students had entered the competition. His heart was filled with pride. So Rabbi David watched yeshiva's first race, but unfortunately, the team came in last. He watched the second race, and again, yeshiva came in last. The same thing happened the third and the fourth time. It disturbed him a great deal. It's not as though he expected his team to win, but to come in last every time, it was such an embarrassment. So after the races, Rabbi David went in search of the yeshiva crew. He approached the head of the team. He commented, "I hope you don't mind me saying so, but I am a little disappointed. Why don't you go hang around the Harvard and the Yale guys? And perhaps you could learn something from them and pick up a few pointers, some of their techniques. And then perhaps the next time, you wouldn't always come in last." So a few months later, the rabbi bumped into the head of the yeshiva crew team. And this time, the crew captain approached Rabbi David with such gratitude. "You were exactly right," he said. "The crews from Harvard and Yale really do have a different method." "Well," said Rabbi David, "what is it?" "Well, they have 6 guys who row and only 1 who shouts." Similar to the yeshiva crew team, we seem to live in an age where too many people want to shout their opinions rather than engage in enlightening dialogue. Polarization is on the rise in our nation and around the world. We have become increasingly siloed in our interactions with others, especially when it comes to political, religious, and racial issues. We shout, we assume the worst of our adversaries, and we seek out evidence which proves us right. Today, for people of widely divergent views and stances, we appear to be the prize fighters in a ring ready to go to distance just to prove another person wrong. We increasingly seek out news from sources that support our own judgments, and we engage in conversations only with people of a similar mindset. Respectful dialogue with an opponent has become an almost lost art in an age of social media, headline news, and cancel culture. And sadly, the latest Pew Research study noted that 45% of our nation's adults have stopped talking to each other about a controversial issue because of something they said or something they posted. But perhaps you are not one of those citizens living in your corner. Maybe you are more of a concerned bystander, someone who has been watching in horror as the course of incivility in our nation grows exponentially. Maybe you just want peace and respect and a civil culture where you do not have to protect your children from the ramifications of such bullish behaviors. Regrettably, we live in a hostile and aggressive culture that is slowly disintegrating. Our capacity to engage in communication, interaction, and discussion is failing us. Rising schisms, hatred, and even anti-Semitic violence are an outgrowth of our deteriorating social bonds and our ties. The very fabric of our society is dependent upon our weaving of friendship, warmth, laughter, understanding, compassion, and respect, even if we disagree. On this Yom Kippur day, we just read in our Machzor, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bezirot ein, for the sin we have committed against you by our narrow-mindedness. I believe it has never been more important to engage in our differences if we want to establish a fully functioning society. The point is not to avoid such tensions or for one side to claim victory. It is for all of us to wrestle with our differences and find mutual solutions. In short, I don't believe we need fewer arguments. What we need is more productive, useful, honest, and human ones. In fact, what our country desperately needs is the Jewish practice of arguing. It is interesting to note that the Yiddish language contains twice as many words for argue as it does for the word happy. There is a long history of Jewish disputation, passed down generation to generation over the dining table. In fact, the percussive din of a family Jewish dinner is legendary because it's filled with a bounty of food, and you turn down another bowl of that matzo ball soup and you will be declared unwell. And of course, there's the banter of friendly bickering. In Judaism, arguing is not hostility. Rather, it is a form of scholarship. It is a way to learn. And though we may come off just a few times as opinionated, in reality, we Jews can often shift positions after a healthy and stimulating conversation. Historically, we are famous for our arguments. We are all familiar with the saying, 2 Jews and 3 opinions. But this sentiment comes directly from the rabbinical discussions known as peel pool. While the word metaphorically means to dispute violently, the Hebrew word also means pepper or spice. And so it is most apropos that as we Jews believe a good argument spices up all of life. Unlike our modern culture's approach to disagreement which divides people, for we Jews, argument is a sign of care, love, and a method to learn. Argument in its highest form is a means of articulating and clarifying thought, and doing so machlechet l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven. So there is an old Yiddish proverb which states, a narrow mind and a big mouth usually lead to pointless arguments. Our tradition is built on the foundation that arguments are never to prove who is right, but rather what is right. A Jewish argument is not an expression of temper, but an expression of logic. A Jewish argument entails not only saying the right thing at the right time, but also leaving unsaid what need not be said. Our Judaism teaches us that there is an art to speaking up, but not talking back. There is an art of disagreeing without being disagreeable. The Talmud, a core religious text, is structured as an anthology of arguments with rabbis from different schools, vehemently carrying out the nitty-gritty details of Jewish practice. The schools of Hillel and Shammai disagree on nearly every issue, but both sides of the arguments are included in 36 volumes of Talmud. As the former chief rabbi of Great Britain, Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, explained, Hillel and Shammai had profound, irreconcilable differences, and yet they did not argue to win or to destroy the other side, but rather to discover the truth. Furthermore, both of their views are studied and taught together because paradoxically, Hillel and Shammai's conflicting beliefs are both considered by the sages to be the words of a living God. If both were correct, how do we Jews decide which argument to believe? Well, the Talmud has an answer for that as well. It tells us that the law is in accord with the house of Hillel because they were kind and they were modest, because they studied not only their own rulings, but also those of the school of Shammai, and because they taught the words of their opponents, the school of Shammai, before their very own. The lesson here is straightforward. We should do more than tolerate opposing views. We should try to understand them as our own. Now, please do not misunderstand me. As explained by thought strategist Helen Kramer, not every opinion is worthy of a place at our table. Arguments that are meant to hurt, discredit, and manipulate others, such as intentionally spreading lies, prejudice, and misinformation, are not heavenly arguments. But in the words of Garrett Smith, every conversation with a person, regardless of their views, is an opportunity to contemplate something new and to add some angle of calculus to your own understanding. In addition, we need to remind ourselves that people with different views are not our enemies. Yes, it can be far easier when faced with opinions that shock our sensibilities to want to flee and shut down. But our Judaism has essential wisdom to help us combat the fear and hatred of the other and assist us in living with our differences. I share with you now, as outlined by Jackie Consego of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Cincinnati, 7 lessons that we can learn from centuries of Jewish wisdom. Number 1, don't ever shy away from an argument. A productive society is fueled by vigorous and knowledgeable debate. Arguments are good and they are healthy when they foster new meaning and new learning. Number 2, examine every angle. Do not revert to a monologue, repeating the very same information over and over. A true dialogue involves actually listening to the other person when we don't already know what we want to say. Number 3, don't be afraid to be wrong. Enter a conversation with a passionate perspective filled with facts. Argue your point of view, but be open to considering an alternative. Number 4, value diversity of opinion. For we Jews, a mixture of opinions gives us strength and knowledge. Number 5, please be informed. The true art of debate and dissent requires a strong base of knowledge. You must be informed in order to join the argument, and that includes being well-versed on the opposing perspectives. Number 6, don't belabor your point. The Jewish people have a great tradition of rest. Shabbat is a weekly ritual for Jews to stop, reflect, and just be. Know when to walk away and give the argument a rest. And number 7, respect your opponent. While debate is a time-tested Jewish tradition, it is to be done with respect and civility, compassion, and consideration. 2 weeks ago, upon the burial of Queen Elizabeth II, political cartoonist Michael Ramirez put his obituary in brief but profound words. It feels like dignity, decorum, self-restraint, manners, and grace died with her. In our world today, we shout. We assume the worst of our adversaries. We seek out evidence that proves us right and ignore that which doesn't. Or we shut down, cancel, or curse those that provoke us and back us into uncomfortable corners. In truth, we do not have to like each other, but we do have to listen to each other. Like the yeshiva crew team, we can't all be the ones shouting if we are to get things done in this world. Just imagine what we could accomplish if we would be willing to put our oars into the water and begin to row. Imagine if we espoused the ancient teachings of our Judaism and taught ourselves how to argue better, how to better articulate our principles, how to debate all sides, and not just one's own, how to change one's own mind as well as another's, and how to be responsible for solutions, not just posturing. Imagine what this new year could look like if we were to see differences of opinion as an invitation to learn about each other. If we could learn to disagree without being disagreeable, if we could stake our positions l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven rather than for our own egos. And imagine if we could hear other people's stories, ideas, and opinions and find commonalities instead of only disparities. Imagine if we could hear criticism without looking for flaws in the critic or charging hypocrisy. Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel once said, "To be a Jew means not necessarily seeking to make the world more Jewish, but rather more human. This is the goal that animates our people through the good times and the bad, from the very beginning of our historical journey to the present day. And so in this coming year, as we respond to the divisive and challenging issues of our day, I pray that our Jewish tradition and God will give us the courage to speak our passions boldly and with kindness. May God give us patience to listen openly and without prejudice and hate. May God give us confidence to discover and explore new possibilities. And may God give us wisdom to discern what is right and good and just. And may we recognize it is our privilege and our responsibility to nurture and foster humane arguments for the sake of heaven. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for being with us here to worship together, either in person or virtually. Today, our doors will remain open for congregants who wish to remain at temple or return to temple for silent contemplation in the sanctuary. There will be a study opportunity beginning at 1:30 p.m. discussing preparing to say Yizkor with Rabbi Ronald Kaplan, and a special Yom Kippur musical interlude from 2:30 until 3:30. The musical interlude will feature our cellist, the same one from last night, Eigel Rosted. Our afternoon service starts at 3:30 p.m. and will include the final Torah reading and the story of Jonah and the whale, and will be followed immediately by Yizkor and Ne'ilah. The service will be available both in person and via live stream. A family Havdalah, including our traditional shofar chorus and glow sticks, will conclude the Yom Kippur day at approximately 5:45 p.m. Please remember to bring back your filled reusable grocery bags. The deadline to drop off your donations is tomorrow, October 6th. A few upcoming events to make you aware of. There will be Torah study this Saturday, October 8th, beginning with breakfast at 9:30 a.m. Tat Shabbat, teaching about Sukkot, will be led by Cantor Ben Ray, also Saturday, October 8th, starting at 10 a.m. Children ages 0 to 5 years old are encouraged to bring their families with them to this program. Our Lifelong Learning Committee is sponsoring a tour of the Reeves Reed Arboretum in Summit next Wednesday, October 12th at 10:15 a.m. And at Shabbat services on Friday, October 14th, we'll be celebrating Sukkot, Simchat Torah, and consecration for our new J School students. We are also welcoming the Sofer, who will be working with us to care for the Holocaust Torah that we heard spoken about earlier today and Rabbi last at Rosh Hashanah. Registration for all these events can be found on the temple website, as well as more information about them and many more events coming up. We offer our heartfelt appreciation to our adult choir, Cantor's accompanist, John Bowen, who has been with us throughout these High Holy Days and will continue on numerous Shabbats, and to Eigel Rostad, our cellist, who has graced our bima once again. We are most grateful for your presence during these High Holy Days, and on behalf of the clergy, Board of Trustees, and professional staff, we wish you all a Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We will reconvene at 3:30 for our concluding prayers, the final Torah reading, and of course the story of Jonah. If you will be staying with us, those who want to study at 1:30 with Rabbi Kaplan, we will be in the main office conference room, so please join us up here. And then we'll be returning to the sanctuary at 2:30 for our cellist. And so we have one final Hayom, as we can bid each other Shana Tova.
Hayom, 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 te'aseinu, amen. Hayom, 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 tevarchenu, amen.
And a Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.